Welcome back. In this video, I'm being honest and open about my failures as a woodworker. One of the best feelings is making something for somebody and them liking it. One of the worst feelings is making something for somebody, them liking it, you go around to their house a year later and the clock that you made them is in pieces. Old me, 3 years ago me, did a terrible job with the glue up. I don't want to even try and fix this, but I've got inspiration from Michael Arm to create patterned plywood into a clock. Actually, that's a lie. I saw the video, but my inspiration comes from this. I got a new toy! I love you. So this is the first cut on my new baby, my Evolution table saw. Just as a heads up, over the next few weeks there will be a review coming out on this tool, and I've got to say, so far, very impressed. But I want to use it for a few weeks so I can give you guys an honest opinion. Now, if you want to know exactly how to do this pattern plywood, I'll put a link in the description for Michael Arm's channel. He goes through it in a lot more detail. But in essence, you make the first cut at 30 degrees, and then after that you have to do a bit of a setup. The great thing about this is that it doesn't involve you really doing any measurements. You simply lay that fresh cut 30-degree angle flat against the table saw, nudge the fence up so that half of the board is on the blade and the other half is just touching that fence, lock the fence in place, and you've now got your cut line. And from here it's just a case of cutting strips, so you want those rhombus shapes, so the lines running parallel to one another. I'm just making a really simple cascading box pattern. If you check out Michael's original video, he goes through a few different patterns as well as showing you some variations, so I fully suggest you check that out. One thing that surprised me throughout this project was how much you can get from such a little amount of material. This piece of ply that I'm using at the minute, I only end up using about half of it, maybe a bit less, to make my entire project, and that was by making it chunky. First and foremost, I'm going to leave this here throughout the video so I can continue to look at it and realise how far I've come. I wasn't ashamed of this when I built it, I loved it, but looking at it now, so many mistakes I made, and I did not have the equipment. That beast that I'm using on the floor like a peasant down there, I don't even care that I'm on the floor. 4 cuts I've made with it, and what an absolute world apart it is from my Aldi death machine. So I'm really pleased with how the table saw's cut in, not so pleased with the quality of my ply, but I kind of knew that. Throughout it, you can see the overlap of layers, which then leads to voids. Hopefully I'll be able to get enough material from that small piece that it won't matter. Now here's the idea. This is going to be the part that you see. And the idea is these parts were cut like this, but what you actually do is turn them over like that. Then if you get another one and put it like that, clamp it and glue it all together, and you have a hexagon that you can then slice into chunks. Then you put those together and create an epic pattern. And I do think it will look epic. Maybe a bit trippy, but epic. Anyway, I'm going to go and cut. We'll call that one set. I'm going to go cut 2 more sets, and I think that'll probably be enough. So the first step to gluing these shapes up is to get them in the orientation you want them. After that, you take some masking tape or painter's tape and you wrap it around nice and tight so that the tape meets. Now this might seem pointless because we're going to cut that tape in a minute, but what it does is it holds everything in place while you glue up, similar to how you'd use tape to do a mitered corner. So using a very sharp Stanley blade, you just nick down one of the joins there and it should all open up like a book. After that, it's about using a lot of glue. You've got to think some of the ply veneers will be on the surface. They take a normal amount of glue, but some of the veneers are going to be turned sideways. And of course, that's like gluing up end grain. It needs an absolute ton. So although it looks like I'm drowning it here, when you actually close it all up, there's very little squeeze out. Ideally, you should clamp these just using elastic bands wrapped really tight, but I don't have any elastic bands, and nor do I know where you buy elastic bands nowadays. It's not like there's still Staples around anywhere. So I just wrapped it with tape, really, really tight if that matters. But it seemed to do the job and held everything together, and once that tape's on, I just went over with a damp rag and tried to take off some of the glue. Of course, you can't get all of it because of where the tape is, but some of it. And then it was just a case of walking away and leaving it to dry. Anyway, the next step is to sand all of these faces, get all the glue off. Some have glued up better than others. This one you can see the ply is not great quality. In some of the others, there's some better pieces. I'm hoping I can get enough stock from all three of these combined. Probably too much. But sanding is next, and I have not got any dust extraction. I was saving up for some and I got a table saw instead. Fortunately, the guys over at BaseCamp Masks sent me this to try. No strings attached, they just asked me to try it, and if I liked it, include it in the video. So in the pack, you get these nose pads, and you get quite a few of them. There's maybe 10, 15 there. And the idea is that you can add different layers so it protects your face. This rigid mask here, I am not going to moan about because it has served me well over the years through all the mold removal in the house. But I can't wear it for very long before it indents into my face and it hurts. The other thing that they've included in the pack is a spare set of filters. In fact, there are 6 in there. And then you've got the mask itself, as well as some instructions. Now, the thing that appealed to me about this mask is how comfortable it looks. But there's only one way to find out. First thing I want to talk about is how instantly comfortable this mask is. You can see me here adjusting it while it's on my head. Everything's easy with sliding buckles, and it attaches with Velcro, which is much better than the plastic clips that you try and do behind your head. And the ultimate test for me was, does it work with safety glasses? You don't need a mask unless you're using safety glasses a lot of the time, and not fogging up is an absolute bonus. I will point out that this mask did not fit me straight out the bag, and I did apply one of those nose foam pads. It's got the 3M double-sided tape on there, and it's as simple as peeling it off and sticking it on the inside. And then you might notice the metal clip on my nose. You just pinch that until it's all fitting perfectly. There's nothing more to it. I know they include an instruction booklet, but it's as simple as putting it on and giving it a go. It also boasts 6 layers of filtration with each of the replaceable dust filters. Now, it comes with some in the pack and you just swap them out. It tells you how many hours you should use it for, and then simply swap and change them. And that's easy to do as well. I was open and honest when I said that BaseCamp sent me this, so it didn't cost me anything. However, if I were to recommend it, yes, I would. It costs less than £20, less than $25 US, and it's comfortable, it improves your health and safety, and for somebody like me that hasn't got good dust extraction or air filtration, it's an absolute must. As if that's not cheap enough, check the link in the description where you can get 10% off using that link, or use the code JBSW10 when you check out. Thank you to BaseCamp for sending me this mask, and I will be using it a lot. Once you have the edges lightly sanded down, it's just a case of setting up a stop block and then cutting down your chunks, segments. Now, this could have been better, and I did learn a trick part way through. You can see all of the splintering here. Well, I learned how to orientate it so that you didn't get them. What I found was where you can see the edge of the ply, the layers, you put that face down and it pretty much removes nearly all the splintering. It would have been even better if I had a decent blade in there, but I didn't. Now, it's important to note that whatever thickness you cut these pucks into, that will be the thickness of your final piece. So if you're wanting more of a veneer, then you may have to go thinner, and you may even have to do it on a bandsaw instead. Now, unfortunately, there is sanding involved. I didn't want to do these completely by hand, so I simply turned on my orbital sander and literally just nudged each side against it. It took off most of the splinters. All we're looking for is a clean glue up here. After that, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. These pieces all go together and you can play around with the orientation to get different patterns. There is a way to do a kind of basket weave kind of pattern, but I'm trying to go for one of those 3D looking box style patterns. I say the word trying because that's what I was trying to do. Foreshadowing. For the glue up, you need something slippery. So I've got this sheet of melamine, which is actually a spare shelf from our kitchen build, and then all I'm doing is tacking on some bits of dowel to the end. That shelf is a perfect right angle, so I didn't need to measure or be precise here. Just tacking those dowels on, just so I've got a square reference. The idea is here that you don't actually use any clamps. I am using a little bit of paste wax, which is really old and not really suitable for anything else, just to give everything their final coat to make sure there is no sticking involved at all. So this is one of those examples where I'm not going to lie to you. This was stressful. So I've got my basic pattern. You'll notice that I'm just assembling a couple of bits in the corner. Apologies for me getting in the way of the camera. Those bits with tape on are kind of my placement blocks to make sure everything stays in line. Then you've got to paint each side that's going to touch with a lot of glue, like plenty of glue. And then you just push them together. Now this seems so alien to me. Whenever we do a glue up, you're talking about clamping pressure this, clamping pressure that. But you are pushing these together and then just leaving them. Now that started out great, but once I got halfway through, then you start pushing them together and it knocks one out of line, and then you're trying to push that one back, which knocks another out of line. And you can see here in my dry fit that I've got the orientation of every block figured out. But somewhere along the line, I panicked. Just old me doesn't quite know it yet. Once everything was in place, then I just used glue to fill in any cracks. Now that was either cracks from the blocks not being able to push together completely, or some of those voids from the veneer in the cheap plywood that I'm using. Then I just grabbed some sawdust from the floor, because I don't have any dust extraction, and I just kind of rubbed it on the top. Now be warned, this method is very effective for filling in those voids and the gaps. The glue that you lather on seeps into the cracks. The sawdust just gently brushed over the top kind of gives the appearance of wood rather than glue. However, it does require a lot of sanding off afterwards. So I've given you a bit of a close-up here whilst I'm sanding. You can see the gaps and the overlap in the veneer on a lot of that ply. Now my plan for finishing this is to use some mineral oil to make the grain kind of pop, and then use some finishing wax to kind of fill the voids and hide it. The wax is yellowish in colour, so although it says it's clear, it does match up really nicely to the wood. I use a combination of chisel work and bits of sandpaper on the bits of plywood to get in all the cracks. It was fiddly, I'm not going to lie, I did not choose the best shape here. I need to now figure out how I'm going to attach the clock mechanism to this to actually make a clock rather than just a pretty placemat. Rather than take measurements, I simply went from one corner to the other corner, and if you go across enough times, then you find the centre. And you also lose your earbud. That's somewhere on the floor in a pile of sawdust now. The reason I'm doing this is because not only do I need a hole for the mechanism to go through, that mechanism needs to actually sit within the clock face itself. On the back, but a big hole needs to be hacked out somehow. At the minute I'm just measuring up for it. I don't quite know how I'm going to do it yet. What I decided would be a really good idea is for someone with the shakiest hands in the world to freehand it with a router. And it worked out all right, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend it looks perfect. So I just took very shallow passes, a couple of millimeters at a time, and then just hogged out all of the material that was left in the middle. This was quite time consuming purely because I had to take out so much material. That clock mechanism can only stick through about 6 millimeters, and at the minute this is 20 millimeters thick. But slow and steady and all that. Well, I say slow and steady, I got bored at this point. and decided to take out a tool that I actually enjoy using, my drill press. There's nothing to it. You line everything up, it's accurate, and this is where the mechanism is actually going to feed through and attach to the hands of the clock. Continuing to lose track, I loaded up what I can only describe as a pointy bit in the router, didn't use the plunge feature, and decided to freehand marking out the cardinal points on the clock. So the 12, the 3, the 6 and the 9. It actually worked quite well. What I don't want on this clock face, because it's an unusual pattern, is to have every segment of the clock marked out. I think it would just look forced because the clock itself is not circular. So all I'm doing is marking out those points with a simple divot. And then whilst I was on the road of potentially ruining my project with random ideas that weren't in the plan, I thought, why not fill these divots with some of my homemade patina mixture fluid. This is just vinegar and wire wool that's just been left for months in the end, and I just use a bit of rag to dot that into those little divots I've made. The idea being that they're just slightly darker but look natural. This will not turn the wood black, it just makes the wood look aged. Now prepare yourself for the most satisfying thing ever. This is mineral oil. Now you normally use this for chopping boards, but just look at the pattern grow here. It just makes it completely pop and stand out. This is to purely make the grain exposed so that it's clear to see the pattern. Oh yeah, the pattern. Can you spot the mistake? Oh no, wait. Oh, there's two idiot. Anyway, deciding that I was too late into this project to start again, I just went for it. More mineral oil, and then I decided to do the back and just pretend like the mistakes weren't there. Hopefully this pattern's psychedelic enough that it won't be too obvious. The next day I added some grain guard clear wax polish to it. I'm only doing one layer because I don't actually want too much of a sheen. I just think things are easier to dust and to keep clean when they've got a little bit of a protective layer on them. And this was the home stretch. I attached a little picture hanging hook on the back of it. It's not very heavy, so that's all it needs. Added the clock mechanism to the back, which is a nice snug fit. And then by the time you put the little bolt on the front, it doesn't need any more securing. No gluing, no taping, nothing. Simple. She's complete. Now, is this the best thing I've ever created? No. I think I could have maybe figured out a better shape, but then the weirdness makes it quirky and I like it and I liked the process. This was one of the best projects I've done to be in, to use a new tool, to try out new equipment, and I thoroughly enjoyed creating it, and sometimes that's more important than the end result. Anyway, if you've got anything from this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Don't forget to check out the description below because there are a ton of discounts for you guys. Saves you money, supports me, and yeah, it's time for me to finish. That was hands down the worst outro I've ever done. Might be the second worst. Sorry.